Hey, good evening. Welcome once again to Meteorology Lab. We've got the moisture, and I don't mean just moisture, we've got the moisture. When I was outside about an hour ago, it felt very much like it did in the Philippines when I was there many years ago. Had the same sort of smell in the air. And the sky looks very tropical. You can see lots of stratocumulus and stratus, or stratocumulus and cumulus up there, and a lot of mid-level altocumulus fields up there. Multi-layered, I guess you could say. Well, we've got weather going on elsewhere around the country. Let's take a look and catch up the rainfall. We haven't looked at this in a while. This is showing the departure, the percentage in normal. So your warm shades are going to be your below average precipitation. And this is year to date from January 1st up to the current calendar date. Up in the northern plains, precipitation has been about 200 to 300%, 2 to 3 times the typical annual or the typical precip totals up to summer there. Lots of rainfall also in the Midwest, down into the Mississippi and Ohio Valley region. And of course, where they haven't been getting the rain, Yuma, Southern California, Vegas, and Phoenix, they're reporting only about 25 to 50% of the typical rainfall so far for this year. Well, we can take a look at I've got a couple of other charts, the drought monitor. And this shows you the impact of all this dry weather. Four Corners really having some trouble there, and there's also this lobe extending into the panhandles. They've caught up a little bit over the past few weeks, but not quite enough. Also, Texas starting to enter a drought, but most of the areas east of I-35, they are picking up a little bit of precip today. And while we're at it, why don't we take a look at the climate forecast? Oh, that's interesting. They actually carry the drought monitor on here. I never noticed that. It's pretty good. They've got that integrated, but let's see what we're looking at for the rest of the summer. Not surprisingly, above average precip there for the southwest. The temperature is likely to remain pretty much normal up in the northern plains. And one thing that this kind of paints out here is northwesterly flow, because the jet is going to kind of fall in between this area here. This is indicating where the subtropical ridge is probably going to be parked most of the time, and this is indicating some of that troughing that we've been seeing up over central Canada. So likely there's going to be a slight northerly component to the flow, kind of a northwest component. And let's look at the precip. Above average around the Appalachians, East Coast, and the Midwest. So this is indicating probably a bit of a moisture supply coming up from the south. Bermuda High probably continuing to bring that moisture on up to the north, and with that west-northwest flow in the upper levels, that means that frontal systems, as they move out through the Great Lakes into the eastern U.S., they'll come into contact with that moisture coming up from the southeast U.S. So that'll be the main focus over the rest of the summer there for what we're going to see on the charts here over the next couple of months. And let's see, is that all of it? Yeah, I've got the, you want to see the Christmas forecast. Let's check that out. December, January, February from Climate Prediction Center. It's looking to be above average as far as temperatures out in the west. I'm sure out in California they're not too happy to hear that. Conditions near normal out in the east, and this is encouraging. Above average precip being forecast for Texas, the southern U.S., and the Gulf Coast. So what this is kind of suggesting to me is that if temperatures are kind of normal in that area, and possibly a lot of precip events down to the south, there might be a slightly elevated chance of maybe some wintry weather here coming up into December and January. So I wouldn't go so far as to say it's going to be another dry, warm Christmas. So we've got a shot of maybe getting back to seasonal normals here. All right, let's look at the current conditions there. Tornado watch for eastern Iowa. Got a pretty good comet cloud system there in Iowa and Missouri. And we can see that on the radar. This is western Illinois from the Lincoln radar. And these are not particularly strong storms, but they are pretty organized MCSs, and those have been moving eastward gradually during the day there. A few of the cells showing a little bit of a convex shape, indicating cold, gusty air in some of those cells. And if we go all the way down into the Lincoln area, we can pick up an outflow boundary right here. So the fact that these are so far out ahead of the storms, that kind of indicates that there's probably not a whole lot of potential for rotating storms, not much tornado activity likely, but certainly probably some cold, gusty outflow on some of these storms, and there could be the potential for some small hail. Pretty good trailing stratiform area back behind this, and then out in Iowa, more cells developing out where they've had the heating in Iowa. We can check that out on the satellite imagery. There's the surface map at this time. Those storms there in Illinois being driven by this cold front. And that in turn is being driven by high pressure in Wyoming and Montana. So cool flow coming down through the northern and central plains, pushing that front all the way down to Oklahoma City, Tulsa, and Plainview, Texas. The moisture field is pretty much right out ahead of that cold front, and it extends all the way up north to this other frontal boundary running through the Quad Cities up to northern Indiana and Columbus. So the moisture axis, that's going to be roughly around right here, pretty much up the Mississippi River Valley, up to about Champaign and Terre Haute. And out in Texas, we've got that tropical system. Can't really pick it up very well in the synoptic chart, but we might be able to see that at the mesoscale. So we'll go down to the south a little bit, and yeah, we can see the flow is a little bit back there in Texas. Very strong easterly flow throughout much of the state, and I don't see a center for the circulation. It's probably off to the bottom of the chart. I can see a little bit of cyclonic turning way down here, so that's probably a very weak center for that low pressure area. And these are these dew points I was talking about. See how they're all the way up to the mid 70s. Got 77 there in Tyler, and 75 in Palestine, 77 at Crockett, and 78 at Longview. So we're just almost about up to 80, and we don't hardly ever see dew points that high in East Texas, so it's definitely a very humid, sultry day. The dry line, of course, also being pushed out to the west, and there it is right there, stretching from about I guess that would be Van Horn up to about Roswell, and then up to this triple point. That's just south of Santa Rosa. So there's probably some potential here for a few high base storms. So we'll take a look at that possibility on the satellite imagery, and also some potential along that cold front there. So there's plenty of boundaries for these storms to go up along, and also due to the MCSs we've had in Texas in this area right here, that's kicked a little bit of outflow up towards the Dallas area. Okay, so now we're starting to get a pretty firm foundation on what's happening weather-wise. And we'll pick that up with the thickness and isobars. And probably that's going to sort of reinforce what we've already seen. There's that high pressure there, eastern Montana into the Dakotas. And then our front is somewhere off down here. And let's see, any other important features? Well, we've got the very strong offshore high there off the coast of California, helping to produce a strong onshore component. in the southeastern U.S. Looks kind of stagnant in that area, a little nose of that Bermuda high extending into Florida. Looks like a stagnant front through the northeastern U.S., somewhere in this area right here. Let's see, where's the trough at? Let's see, there's 1012. Yeah, that looks like a trough right there. Couple of troughs here and there. And then up in New York and New England, very strong northerly flow. And there's another one of those cold polar highs up there coming from the Hudson Bay area. It's been very, very cold in this part of Canada. It's just been one high after another driving southeastward into the northeast U.S. So this is a baroclinic high. It's on its way out, and there's cold air advection, and then here's warm air advection. I think I've got the colors backwards, but anyway, finding the fronts, there's a warm front right there up in northern Canada, and then a fresh cold front coming south into the prairie provinces. And then from there, an occluded front going all the way up to the high Arctic. And there's the next high pressure area coming in from the Arctic Ocean area. And I was kind of reassured to see some of the temperatures there in Barrow. Let me see if I can pull up what the current temperature is. METARs for Barrow, Alaska. They had been running kind of above average, especially over the past few years, and the polar ice pack, we've seen those at kind of like record lows. So the other day, I think yesterday, I was looking at the temperatures there, and they were back down in the low 30s, about where they should be. Where's the METARs? Okay, I'm going to have to go to Aviation Weather Center. You know, what I can do is I can just pull up the a surface chart for Alaska. We haven't looked at that very much, but let's go up there and look at Alaska. And I'm going to UCAR here. This is a good place to get quick charts. Here's the URL, weather.rap.ucar.edu. And they've got the surface page, and you can just click on Alaska, and we can see what conditions are doing up there. And we can see that cold onshore flow there, and it's all out of the north. So that's indicating very cold high up in the Arctic Bay region. Temperatures look close to seasonal normals, which is good. And just a quick look at Fairbanks, 77 up in that area, and 70 at Anchorage. So yeah, as you get south, it is a little bit on the warm side. All right, upper air. Well, already we can see a little bit of that northwesterly flow. It's way up to the north, but that's going to be kind of the dominant pattern over this summer, just kind of a big ridge over the southwestern U.S., way down in this area, and then there will be a tendency for troughing in the Hudson Bay area. So we can see conditions are pretty active up there over northern Canada. The polar front jet extending from Alaska down to Nunavut, down to Hudson Bay, and then across Newfoundland. A couple of good troughs moving through that flow. Here's a ridge. Not everything is troughs. There's a ridge right there. And then, I don't know if you can see that, but right up in this region, there's actually a trough. It's kind of it's kind of weak because it's being flattened by the ridge, but it's there. And as that comes down the backside of that ridge, we're going to see that kind of amplify as it gets down into this area. So that'll probably be a weather maker here in just a couple of days as it gets down into Ontario and the Great Lakes. Okay, checking out the capping. Let's go up to 700 millibars. Okay, so this is this morning, and we see, okay, that's 850. Okay, there we go. This is up at about 10,000 feet. Looks like there's been a drastic decline in the temperature. The 10 Celsius readings, they've backed off to West Texas. and the Four Corners and California there. So pretty much all of the central and northern plains out into Illinois, only running about 6 to 8 Celsius. So that's kind of on the low side, and that's partly because of that frontal system moving through this area. Got that very strong jet coming through that area and kind of breaking up the cap. Fort Worth, 10 Celsius right there. We've got that tropical system coming in from the south. That's providing a little bit of capping there, so things are a little bit stratified today. And let's check out the satellite. Figure we're 17 minutes in. It's probably a good time to look at the satellite. And we'll start out with the water vapor there. So lots of dry air coming into the West Texas area, so I guess no wonder we don't have much in the way of thunderstorm activity. We did have that dry line out in this region, remember that? We should take a look at the soundings and see why we haven't seen much in the way of any convection. Let me just check that out with the visible imagery, and yeah, it's totally clear out in that area. So let's take a look at a null case and see what a sounding looks like out in Amarillo with no thunderstorms. Okay, there's the current sounding there for Amarillo. So checking out the temperature. Yeah, that's about 80 degrees Fahrenheit. That seems a little bit cool. And the moisture is really not too bad. This is about 12 grams per kilogram. However, there's quite a bit of capping. Looks like with that cool air here and conditions a little bit warm in West Texas, that's keeping things kind of shut down. But you'll notice that the cap is above the 700 millibar layer. 700 millibar layer, let me draw that out for you. It's right there. And you can see that cuts just beneath the capping inversion. So maybe that 700 millibar chart is not going to be the greatest thing to be looking at. So we'd have to look at maybe a combination of skew-ts or pull up a 600 millibar chart if we can do that. So that 9 right there, that's a little bit misleading. Let's check out another skew-t. I think El Paso might be a good one. El Paso, Texas, way out to the west. Wow, they're completely dry. Lots of warm air. Yeah, so we're definitely not going to get convection in that kind of environment. However, what if we took the moisture at Amarillo and combined it with this mid and upper level profile? For example, at Roswell, what the sounding might look like. Well, we already know that in Amarillo they had about 12 grams per kilogram of moisture. So what if we had vectored that out into the high plains? Well, 12 is about right here. So we combine that with that very hot temperature. And a little bit of capping, that would probably support some high base storms. So what this is telling me is it looks like maybe that rich moisture did not make it very far west. And then Midland, let's see how that plays into things. So Midland definitely has some moisture, about 12 grams per kilogram. And they appear to be very well capped in that area. 700 millibar temperature looks pretty representative. About 15 Celsius there at Midland. And there's all that capping, that's convective inhibition, keeping things firmly shut down. So yeah, even though there's some moisture in that area, this indicates that the cap is very strong in that area. And then, of course, as you go west, we can see by the El Paso sounding that we rapidly lose the moisture there. Okay, let's check out the satellite. And what I want to do with this is roll it back to earlier in the day and see how things look like around 11 or 12. Well, let's see. We've got a comet cloud shape right there. So that's going to be our frontal system. It's like a front in the Illinois-Iowa area. And then, of course, we have high pressure moving in from Montana, bringing the cold air southward. Now, typically, when we have a setup like this with the front kind of trailing into West Texas, there can be upslope flow in this area right here in eastern New Mexico. Because if we extend this southward, often you'll get the winds doing something like that right there. They'll be kind of spiraling into the heat low located in this area here. And that can generate a little area of upslope flow right in that region. Clovis, Tucumcari, Santa Rosa, and Roswell. But looks like again, it's a little bit too well capped, and let me zoom in on that a little bit. Where's my Texas map? Okay. I'm surprised. I thought I generated a Texas map, and I know it's in here. There it is. Okay. So let's take a look at Texas. And there we do see that there's cumulus fields all the way from Amarillo down to Clovis. But as the day goes on, that cumulus field just kind of becomes high-based and dries out. So it looks like a few shreds of moisture right there around Carlsbad, but not enough to generate any storms. So that is looking like some very strong capping in that region. Further out to the east, though, cap is definitely less of a factor. Some cells going up there along the Red River around Durant and McAllister. And you can see those cells bubbling up here around Durant. And then they move southward towards the Sherman area. So down in the Dallas area, you could probably see a few anvils up to your distant north. Then, of course, we got our tropical system there. Lots of overcast in the Houston, Austin, and Victoria area, generating a little bit what looks almost like a spiral band. It is a little bit of a tropical system there. And that's pushing northward, and it's also kicking out some outflow right in that area. Yeah, keep an eye on the Dallas area, and you'll see some of that outflow. Yeah, there it is right there. And you can see that surging north, but not producing much as far as shower activity. Most of the showers up there in the Red River being produced by that cold front. And let's check out a few other areas. Of course, Iowa getting some thunderstorms today. And here's what it looked like earlier. You can see those cells going up there just east of Des Moines. Looked pretty potent there several hours ago, but those surged eastward into Illinois and producing some kind of outflow of storms. And then you can see back here in that dry sector, some new cells get going. And that's where we have the tornado warnings out in this area right here. A little further to the east, I think I've got Ohio. This is further east along that front. And there we can see a couple of clusters of storms move in through the Columbus area, out to around north of Dayton, and moving east-southeast. Some pretty good anvils right there, and some parts of Indiana getting some showers. We've already gone over Texas. I can give you a close look at some of those cells. I do have an image for that one. And this is what we want to watch right here. There's those cells back building down the cold front. And there's tail end Charlie. So if you were chasing, you would probably be hanging out somewhere around the Sherman and Durant area. trying to get a few photos in that area. And then let's see, we've got a couple of other areas. Oregon. Remember we were talking about that strong onshore flow. And that's really bringing in that marine stratus layer. Let me move this. And there it is. You can see that it's made inroads onto the coast, bringing that fog and stratus inland. And putting into motion, you can see how the stratus kind of infiltrates all those valleys right there up to the coastal range, and then inland, some pretty strong thunderstorms going up there around Salem out towards about Bend. And these storms here, they're pretty strongly sheared. You can see those anvils kind of extending out to the east. Looks like some of the cells we sometimes get in Oklahoma during the spring. And yeah, look at this low cloud field. This is kind of unusual for Oregon. All this right here. That's a rather vigorous low cloud field. So that's representing all that moisture there, helping to feed inflow into these storms. So this is kind of a rare glimpse of organized storms there in Oregon. Okay, let me take a quick look at chat. We've gone through a bunch of today's weather there, spent the past half hour doing that. Let me check in on things. Let's see, we got Carl Berghoff here. Bill K reporting 75 over in Atlantic City. Got Ryan Toomey's here, and Burl H. Erica Baker, Coffeyville, Kansas, 84 over 65. Ryan Toomey's reporting very, very hot there in southern Florida. Feels like 100 degrees with extreme high humidity. Ron Chalfant reporting 83 over 31 in Southern California. Reporting the Weather Channel showing lots of flooding in Texas. Yeah, some areas, especially down in the Corpus Christi, Port Aransas, Victoria area, have been really getting some rain there. David Moore reporting storms north of the Red River there. Got Willie Greenway up there in Georgia with us. East coast of Texas looking dire with all the rainfall. Yeah, Houston and Galveston also getting a lot of rain there. I wonder if I can pick up a precip total product. Let me check that out. College of DuPage, definitely a good place to get radar data, so I'm going to head over to there, look at their radar, and we'll pull up the Houston NexRad site. And already we can see some pretty strong storms there from just east of Galveston all the way up to about around the Jasper area. And let's see, storm total, there it is right there. Yeah, it looks very localized. Some areas, all the way out near Beaumont, 8 to 9 inches. Had no idea they were getting it so heavy that far east, but they are. And then another axis extending up through Port Aransas to Victoria. That's going to be about 3 to 4 inches in that region. Wow, so they're really getting hammered there in far southeastern Texas. Adam Davis, Bedford, Indiana, mid-80s, small storms popping up here and there. Yep, close to that front there. Starting a new job in Indianapolis in July. Ryan reporting bad floods in the same area impacted by Harvey. Willie Greenway joining us tonight. Thomas Fortner. Carl Berghoff seeing a few dropped frames. Oh yeah, we've dropped 4,800 frames. Oh well. Fun continues, but it seems like it's holding in there. Sue M is with us, and I think that's most everybody. Justin Pulliam released a large report about the Harvey forecasting. Okay, so let's go ahead and head into the forecast. Let's do that. Okay, picking up things for this evening now that we've got a pretty firm idea what's happening. There's that tail end of that cold front moving through southeastern Oklahoma. So that's going to probably form up into an MCS, very good moisture there in Arkansas. And we're going to see kind of a rainy night there in Arkansas. Looks like things calming down a little bit in southeast Texas. Losing the diurnal heating, but there will be some localized storm activity here and there, all the way from south of Lufkin to about Victoria. But you can see things are definitely drying out in much of Texas. Lots of precip in the Midwest there. Let's put that into motion. That line that we're watching there in western Illinois, looks like that's going to fall pretty rapidly apart over the next few hours. So I guess it's not going to make it all the way to Chicago. But we will see redevelopment out around Champaign and down to Terre Haute as the warning starts up. Got that warm front through that area. So a little bit of localized lift. And, of course, the main baroclinic system out to the west. As far as supercell composite, I figure this is probably a good way to look at potential. You can see that the most favored area for any severe weather, and this is very slim, but it's got a little bit of enhanced potential there around Monroe, Louisiana. And let's kind of look at the track there. Okay, yeah, there's another area up there in Illinois that's just ahead of that line, but as we shut down the heating, things will quiet down overnight. We can kind of see the moist sector right in that area right there. This is going to be about 5 in the morning. And then as we get to dawn, and then 9 and 10 a.m., there's the most favored area for new cells right there, from just east of Nashville up to around the Louisville area. So it looks like more rain there for Kentucky, Indiana, and southern Ohio. Let's take a look at the upper air patterns. High, that's going to be parked well to the south out in this area right here, just south of Arizona. A lobe extending out into South Texas, and we're going to come under the influence of these prevailing westerlies. So the pattern will get a little bit more progressive here. And you can see that next shot of jet stream energy moving through Kansas, Oklahoma over the next day, and then into the Ohio Valley region. Okay, so we will get some westerlies, and yeah, there it is. You can kind of see the northwest tendency to the upper level flow. So just more of the same for the central U.S. And we'll go ahead and look at the look at things in terms of precipitable water. There's that very moist air mass over Texas, and the trend over the next 24 to 48 hours. Well, we're going to have drying coming in from the north. So a bunch of dry air coming in, spreading southward. That'll kind of clear things up a little bit. And then we can see our warm front up in Ohio and Indiana. Cold front coming southward. And then up into Iowa and Wisconsin and occlusion. So that whole system will gradually move eastward. So this is all an occlusion right there. The main baroclinic zone is going to be in Virginia by Friday, and that will bring the front through Georgia. So maybe a bit of an increase in precip through that area there. The baroclinic low, or the occluded low, will be spinning there in Illinois and Indiana. And the remainder of that high will be sinking in through the Great Plains. And let's see what things look like through the weekend. Looks like kind of a stagnant front through Oklahoma. Higher precip chances in that area. And Texas, it looks like it's going to be drying out just a little bit. Another surge coming into Texas for Tuesday and Wednesday. Not quite as strong as this last one. And let's see what the next big change is going to be. Not much of any change, really. Just southerly flow through much of the Great Plains right there. And looks like we'll have a couple backdoor fronts here and there. You see how the flow is kind of rotating like this. This is indicating probably some of these old stagnant fronts moving south and then becoming parked out in this area right here. So looks definitely to be rainy through the southern Ohio Valley area, Arkansas, Tennessee, and Alabama and Georgia there. And let's see, we'll take a look at the precipitation, maybe look for any tropical systems coming in from the south. There goes that old occluding low on its way out. A couple little boundaries right through this area Sunday and Monday. So lots of rain there for the Central Plains going into next week. And I don't see any big changes really, except for the next front marching west to east through Canada. But that's not going to make it very far south. So yeah, aside from that, I guess I don't have much to report. We'll just kind of watch things and see if anything new picks up on the charts over the next couple of weeks here. All right, that's about all I got for tonight. Thank you for watching. Looks like our numbers are a little bit low. I think that may be due to the continued network problems. I can definitely see those 4800 dot frames. That's not good, so we'll continue working on that. I may also bring the webcast back to 480 for a little bit till we sort that out. That'll definitely fix it. Anyway, thanks you all for joining, and we'll see you tomorrow. Have a good evening, and have a good one. Bye-bye.